All right. Good afternoon, financial professionals. I'm Phil Haug, Senior VP of Sales, and joining me today is Josh Meester, RVP with E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to today's brew, building relationships every week. Thanks for tuning in today. For those of you joining Brew for the very first time, welcome. We like to start out our Brew telecast by celebrating today's national days, and today's kind of a hits close to home for me. It is National Comic Book Day. That's maybe not what I was going to, but it is National Daughters Day, and I've got two of them and two soon-to-be stepdaughters. So definitely a daughter-filled household, and then National One Hit Wonder Day as well. And that makes me think about all the one hit wonder recording artists that are out there. And ironically, I saw Green Day at the airport the other day. So I don't know if they'd be considered a one hit wonder. I think they've had a couple hits, but
I remember them.
yeah, it was. I was not expecting to see them and their entourage walk through the airport, so it was kind of cool. Um, so on today's brew, we're continuing along the lines of Life Insurance Awareness Month being in September and talking about the stories that impact our industry and impact our clients. And as we wrap up Life Insurance Awareness Month, ignoring a policy review can have major impacts on families, not just one, but many people. We're going to discuss a true life story and true life events that impacted one of our very own, Josh Meester, and his family. And it's a personal story to remind us how important it is the simple task of a policy review can avoid disaster for numerous people involved. Before we get started, we encourage you to use the chat box or raise your hand and ask any questions. All attendees will be registered for a drawing for a CE voucher and a Starbucks gift card, and we'll announce the winner at the end. So, Josh, your family and your the people close to you are impacted by a life insurance policy or the importance of reviewing a policy. Do you care to share the circumstance and the story behind what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to the national days, I was a big Spider-Man comic book guy. I also have a daughter, 5-year-old. So I might even tell her I'm a famous YouTuber now since this will go out on YouTube. I might be able to get away with that for a couple of years until she smartens up. And what hit wonder? Obviously, you think music. My first thought to that was I had a pretty good first year as an RVP last year. Now I'm just trying not to become a one-hit wonder. That's where my mind went on those three deals.
Well,
Yeah,
it would better to be a one hit wonder than a comic or a joke, right?
that's true. I was relevant for 12 months. But yeah, jumping in to Phil's point, wrapping up Life Insurance Awareness Month, kind of with a simple idea, but a personal story that I offered up to the group to join everyone today. Going back realistically probably to 07, 08, my family tends to dabble in some investment stuff, startups, etc. And we were able to meet a fellow out east. My parents lived out there for years, and he happened to be a doctor at the time, but he had a passion to get into, let's just say, the beverage business. He ended up starting his own company, bringing us kind of in on the ground floor with many others. Malcolm was his first name. I'll leave it at that. But Malcolm was passionate about everything he did, and he was really running with this startup company that he had. And he started it, officially launched in 08. Not the greatest year, but we launched in 08, and it was really a grassroots kind of deal. Organic growth. Everybody was excited. Malcolm was a great guy. He had a wife, three young kids. The guy never stopped. I mean, he was just always out there selling, pumping the brand. He really was the brand, which I want to emphasize. He really was the guy. Almost 10 years ago.
You'd say he was a key person of the business.
He was the key person, which we will get into, called in the insurance terms. But a little over 10 years ago, April of 2014, he happened to be down in Florida visiting, prospects, clients. Unfortunately, made a decision to get into a car with one of the clients who happened to be, let's just say, under the influence. They were in a sports car, and unfortunately, that car hit a parked or stopped Ford Expedition that was stopped at a red light going around 130, 140 miles an hour. Sent that stopped car about 150 yards. Unfortunately, Malcolm, the passenger, died instantly. It was a sad day, a sad time. The driver, of course, walked away essentially unharmed, but Malcolm didn't have the good fortune of that. So our world was flipped upside down in a moment. Rod Crandall did a great brew earlier this month, and
Mm-hmm.
when you lose somebody that not only is affecting himself, his family, but then investors and employees, business as a whole, a lot of questions are up in there. Did we have this
Mm-hmm.
buttoned up? Did we have that? So there was a lot of grief, of course, up
Mm-hmm.
front, and then kind of shifted to business mode of were our ducks in a row, etc. I kind of almost chuckle at this point because going back to April of 2014, I had been in this business for maybe a year, and maybe a week had passed after Malcolm passed away, and my dad, of all people, called me, said, "Hey, we're digging into everything, and we had a $10 million key person life insurance policy on Malcolm." He kind of gives me the details. I kind of nonchalantly act like I know what he's talking about because let's face it, a year in, I really didn't know what I was
Mm-hmm.
doing. But my dad kind of looked to me as the expert, so he's giving me all the information. And one of the last things he told me, he said, "Well, I don't know. It says something about lapsed." And I'm like, "Okay, I haven't been around long, but I know that's not
Yeah, we know what
good."
that word means.
That's not good. I'm like, "What do you mean lapsed?" I'm like, "Terminated?" He's like, I don't know. It says lapsed." I'm like, "We need to get with, the CFO. We need to get to the bottom of this because that is not what we want to see, especially
Right.
knowing the circumstances we just came across, a week ago or so." So we did our due diligence, and sure enough, the policy that we had in force for years had lapsed 2 or 3 months prior to Malcolm passing.
Mm.
And as anybody can imagine, when you think you have the business protected, the backstop, especially at a $10 million, you know, kind of squeeze into the company, and
Right.
then you don't have it. We thought our world turned upside down, and then we really found out our world was upside down. So high level, that was the story. Unfortunately, it got even uglier because the CFO at the company really had to kind of start digging in and trying to figure out how he was going to save face. And at the end of the day, he hung his hat that the lapse notice went to an old business address. As the company grew, they had moved offices a couple times. Of course, the address wasn't always updated, so
Right.
he started getting legal involved. That drug on for years. He went after the advisor. He went after the BGA. He went after the carrier. Uh, Much time and money spent on that, which at the end of the day, before that was settled, which it was not completely resolved, to the $10 million death benefit, the business would have received tax free. I think E&O ended up paying out a few million. By that time, the company had, essentially dissolved. And here we kind of sit today with, zero involvement with it. And, you know, thinking of Malcolm and what
Yeah.
he saw as the vision for the company, everybody at the time of, the tragedy was fully on board with, all right, we're going to have this, you know, infusion into the business with the life insurance policy that thankfully the advisor, saw the opportunity and made it happen.
Right.
We're going to keep this thing going. This is going to, help Malcolm's family, etc. And at the end of the day, none of that really ended up happening. All for kind of one simple, I guess, call it mistake. The
Yeah.
advisor just didn't have the wherewithal to be checking in with the CFO at least on a, on an annual basis. So
Right.
that's really what we're trying to hammer home is something as simple as policy review, especially, for your larger death benefits, A clients.
Mm-hmm.
something we really encourage everybody to think of, because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily just affecting one family, it's affecting businesses, their employees, the employees' families, etc.
Yeah, it's one part to, I don't want to say sell it, but it's one part to provide the solution and have the business or the individual or the family purchase it. But there's a lot of work that goes in after it, right? I mean, there's the maintenance, there's the keeping up on it, making sure that the bank drafts are set up properly, monitoring for the lapse notices, making sure that you don't have these situations, because it's frustrating when, and we're dealing with people's lives, right? So it's not only frustrating, it's also just heartening, right? Because you know that there's a loss that was suffered. So, you talk about policy reviews. How would you've been in the business, you have been very successful, and you have the opportunity to work with a lot of top advisors. How would you advise a producer or an advisor to track their policies? What's kind of a best practices that you would put into place to help stave off some of the situation like you have had to deal with?
Yeah, and I mean, sadly, it does probably at the end of the day fall on us, the advisor. Of course, the client as well does have some responsibility, but I mean, something as simple, depending what you use, if it's Outlook, if it's Salesforce, here at E4, we have our own CRM HQ. Um, you know, we all got to be checking that box, checking that follow up, even if it's 6 months from now, a year from now. Set the
Mm-hmm.
reminder, encourage your advisor or his staff to set reminders. Again, you can lean on your RVP at E4, your case
Mm-hmm.
managers, our CRM. It's not like this is rocket science, but we can set follow ups
Mm-hmm.
for these things to try to help. Again, it's not necessarily all 300, 500, 1,000 of your clients. We get that,
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point. It's hard, but really keep track of your important clients, especially business related.
Mm-hmm.
Something like this happens to a client that's business related, and you might end up losing all of your business if you did their PNC, etc.
Right.
And one thing kind of off on a tangent, but um, I have many cases that get either rated or, hey, this is going to be smoker until May of 2025. We're always happy to throw those follow-ups even on pending cases or new cases, like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to put this in force right now because that smoker rating, the premium just killed it.
Right.
But my case managers in the past, will always be throwing in those follow-ups. So as we come across
Stay
it,
on top of it.
we're able to ping you and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Advisor, we had that case 6 months ago that we knew we were going to have a much more favorable outcome in
Right.
6 months. By the way, I set the follow-up. Here's the reminder. Now they're reaching out to the client, and we're able to help in that fashion. But again, from policy service, it's really just setting the reminders, keeping on top of your top people.
Right. And you bring up a good point on the business side of things too, because unlike personal case, it's usually an individual or a trust that's buying something, and it like I have life insurance, it's there for my daughters, right? And I want to make sure that that's there. I manage and monitor and maintain my own checking account, my personal finances. It's me, right? When you have a business case, it might be a CFO, it might be somebody else, it might be an accounting team. Those positions turn over. You have promotions, you have things that, if you're paying, especially if it's an annual premium, you might be paying it once a year and that controller forgets about it, right? So businesses move, employees change. So it kind of does fall back. I don't want to say it's sole onus, but it's a definite reminder as an advisor. Like if you got a business case, business owned, business placed, key person, it's not a bad idea to make sure that you're following up with them. The other thing that's gonna kind of be a benefit to you is ideally the business is growing, right? And just like anything, it's it's a pretty bold assumption to think that what you sold them 5 years ago is what they need today, right? They
Yep.
might have a change, they might have a new partner and a buy-sell agreement. Obviously, the Connolly case is forcing a lot of business owners and advisors and attorneys to look at the structure on buy-sell agreements. It might be uber successful, and there's an opportunity where you could have a defined benefit plan. I mean, there's a lot of things where coming in and having an additional review not only make sure that it not only ensure that the policy is still enforced, but it also helps with kind of be turning your best clients into your future best prospects too, right?
Yeah, the opportunities are endless. I mean, one of my top guys, I would say 95% of his focus, his target market is businesses. And
Hmm.
I mean, he used an analogy in the past. Even if he wasn't the advisor or the servicing agent on stuff, he always takes the time to do that because his name's going to show up when said notice or correspondence goes out to the client. And he likened it to your water heater. You know, your water heater breaks. Who do you call? A lot of
Right.
the times it's the last company that was there that slapped their sticker on it. It's like, well,
Right.
I'm going to call them. They were here. So he kind of used that analogy. But, you know, when people think of policy review, they're not thinking new sales, new money, revenue. But at the end of the day, to your point, Phil, it's not you're not going to run across many people that are staying stagnant, especially
Right.
in the business space. I can't count even close to how many times this particular advisor is doing those reviews. And yeah, there is 5 more new managers that they are going to do exec bonus on. The business did grow 5 million, so we're actually now replacing a $2.5 million key person policy and bumping it to 5, or we're bumping buy sell from 2.5 million to 5 and replacing past coverage. And you're
Yeah.
doing, at the end of the day, you're doing right by the client and you're growing revenue, and you're just in front of them. Clients
Yeah.
like being felt like they're seen and they're important, so checking in at least once a year
Yeah.
is just it's just that much more important. And let's face it, the business stuff will spin into personal. So
Right.
if you take care of the business and they see how active you are at making sure they have the correct protection, that might be the day they wrap up that meeting and say, hey, Chris, by the way,
Need to
really
get
like to
this.
talk to you about, me and my wife and what can we do with the kids. So
Right.
it really is endless opportunity that can start with something from a client perspective. My advisor's reaching out to me with no real intention to sell. He's
Yeah.
actually just reaching out to make sure I'm okay and we didn't miss any blind spots.
Yeah. Hey, we
So it
put
really
this in
comes from a
with
soft stance, I would say.
a servicing and consulting standpoint. We put this in place years ago, and I look at it from if you're a commercial insurance producer. So a lot of these business producers have a connection either to a commercial insurance or there's the benefits. There's an affiliation there, right? There's no blindness coming into it. If I had a company that added a $5 million building, I would never not add that, right? And yet they'll come in and add 10 employees or they'll add a partner and we don't always add that, right? And I would argue that the additional people or the additional opportunity there is business wise and revenue wise is far greater than, they can rebuild the building, but you can't rebuild the founder of the company, right? So I go back to the other thing on a policy review standpoint. For years, I had the benefit of working with a multi-lines P&C agency. And one of the conversations that I'd have with my customers and have with the advisors that I was working with was, you know, you're putting uh, stuff in force to make sure that your family's taken care of. And if you envision it, everything you own is in the front seat of your car. How much of that do you want protected, right? And the reality of it is that when something happens, the first phone call is usually going to be 911. And then the second phone call is usually going to be to me as your insurance agent, right? So there's a tragedy, there's a loss, there's an accident, there's something's happened. It's going to be 911 to call the fire department, call the, police, ambulance, whatever it is. Then it's going to be the insurance company, right? Well, if I put the things in place, there are literally billions of dollars of insurance death benefit that go unclaimed because the beneficiaries don't know and the secrets stay with the insured. At minimum, I want to have on your file where your life insurance is at
Yep.
because you put that in place to protect your family, business, people that you care about, whatever that is. At a minimum, I want to be able to help them rebuild the pieces. I don't care if it's with me or not. I just want to make sure that you put these things into place, disability insurance, long-term care insurance, life insurance. I just want to keep an inventory so I can go back to your family and I can help them rebuild the pieces of the puzzle back.
Yep. And
So from a multi-lines there, just asking of in it, like I sold a lot of stuff with that, but I never went into it with the intention of selling them anything. It was just, I don't want to, again, it goes back to what we talked about last week. I want to feel bad. I just never want to feel guilty. I want to have that inventory. I want to know where's your stuff at. And again, go back in and do the beneficiary review. Go back in and make sure that the policy's active. Go back in. There's a lot of, in today's world, they can, this little box, this little cell phone, we have access to 99.9% of the information at our fingertips, right? So we can be of utmost service and value to our customers by helping them consolidate and put it all in the same spot to avoid the tragedy, both a loss of life and ultimately the loss of a business because the policy wasn't being reviewed. So, Josh, I do appreciate you taking a minute out of your busy day and sharing your story and making it personal with us on the brew today.
Yep.
While we wait for any final questions, I would like to remind you that this brew, as well as all of our other brews, are recorded and stored on our library at the website of www.e4.insurance. And for the giveaway, Josh, I'm going to have you pick a number between 1 and 30.
Oh, my favorite number is 32. I was hoping you were going to go above that. I will go with Aaron Rodgers, 8.
8.
Not 12.
Today's winner is Jessica, and we'll be in touch with the Starbucks gift card. And congratulations to Jessica on being this week's winner. So next week, we're going to be kicking off our October financial planning series, Selling Your Business. What do I need? Today, tune in to hear from North America's new partnership with a leading valuation company that will provide a business valuation solutions with Andrew Herrera, Regional Vice President for North American. This platform can help your business owner clients plan for the future success and generate revenue for your practice. It gives them another tool that we provide through E4 to help you develop your business as your customers develop theirs. Thanks again, and I will look forward to seeing all of you on next week's brew. Thank you, Josh.
Have a great week, guys. Thank you.